Okay, this is Chapter 9, Part 2. If you haven't watched the first part, the first half, Part 1, please go do so before you do this. So we're continuing, we're talking about work teams. This is Part 2. So why teams? Teams are good when they're performing complicated, complex, interrelated tasks. Okay, that's the point. And I'm going to give you an example in just a moment. They're good when knowledge and talents and skills and abilities are dispersed across organizational members. That is, no one person has all that's necessary in their one head to be able to do it. They have to network each other's brains in order to make or muscles even, depending on the task, in order to make it work. Empowerment and collaboration are important generally in this, and this is the basis for total quality effort. So let me give you an example of where teams are useful. Say you were going to build this building. I don't care who you are, building this building by yourself is going to be extremely hard, trying to lift the marble and get the pillars up and get the roof up and what. But in a team, you can make lighter work of doing that. Now, this building is also a metaphor. This is the President's Palace, a metaphor for team building as well, because in governance, no one individual leader is going to be able to make it all happen by themselves. There's going to be distributed leadership throughout the government if it's going to function effectively. Teamwork is joint action by a team of people in which individual interests are subordinated to the team unity. That is, everybody's not running off their own direction. They're working together in such a way to make the situation stronger. But if they're all going all different directions, it's not going to function as well as if everybody's pulling together the same way. Okay? That's the nature of teamwork. Now, the old team environment versus the new team environment. If you roll the clock back, say 50 years, maybe even less than that, you'd have, even in the Western Hemisphere, in the U.S. and the Western Europe, you'd see the old work environment where people are, follow orders, and the manager is the brain, and everybody else is kind of, just subordinated to that, and people are conformed to the manager's direction. There's almost like a dictatorship-like ability, and we've gotten further and further away from that over time. And people were cooperated by suppressing they cooperated by suppressing thoughts and feelings, and they just wanted to go along and just, not get in trouble. In a new team environment, if you have the ability to move somewhere else, you got to think of employees now as an internal customer. If you do that, you'll have some success here. Where in a new team environment, a person generates initiatives. That is, that it's not just follow orders. It's think. It's progress. It's what extra value can you contribute. The team will often chart their own steps rather than be told what to do within a range. I mean, here's the broad goal, and we're going to, how can you best figure out how to get it done? You have the right to think for oneself, and people do rock the boat. There's an old adage, just don't rock the boat, right? Well, you know what that means. You don't want to fall into the water, but people actually do that, right? And they come up with new ideas and better products as a consequence. People cooperate using thoughts and feelings. They're direct. The new team environment is significantly different than the old work environment, and this is being radically rejected in the West. I'm sure that you see this still in modern China and other places that have more vestiges of authority. However, that's going to become less and less effective. The centralized command works really well for saying this is what we're going to do, but not really well for being flexible or nimble or quick to change or whatever else. So there's a trade-off here between the centralized mentality and the decentralized mentality. And when I'm talking about centralized and decentralized, if you think that the manager is the brain and should do all the thinking, that's centralized. If you think that the way it should work is that it's like a nervous system, in your hand, right? You feel nerves. That's like people in the organization that can detect and say, hey, look, something's going on, right? And so those nerves, it's distributed through the entire body, and that for a reason, right? So it can talk to the brain and help you coordinate and do things. That's much more like the new team environment. Okay, work team structural issues. So structural issues are things like what has to be done. So you have to have goals and objectives. You have to have operational guidelines or standard operational procedures, performance measures, role specification, who's going to do what. This is the what of what has to be done. And then you have process issues. So if the structural issues are what needs to be done. Process issues are how it's going to be done. How are you going to manage, how you're going to function, how you're going to cooperate, or how you're going to compete. Answering the how is going to be as important as the asking the what. Quality circles, depending on the environment that you're in, especially in a manufacturing environment, you'll see quality circles or quality teams. A quality team is a formal part of the organization that's going to try to look at product quality and enhance it. A quality circle is a small group of employees who usually voluntarily will try to work on enhancing that. Okay. Then social benefits of teams. You'll have things like psychological intimacy. We're humans, right? We're no. Don said, "No man is an island." Right? We're not meant to do things alone. Okay. One of the worst things that you do to a prisoner, short of torture, is to put them in solitary confinement, and that's because we don't function well without other people. Okay, so in a team, you get this psychological intimacy, this emotional, this psychological closeness that you wouldn't get by doing the task alone. And you also have the benefit of integrated involvement, of closeness achieved through tasks and activities, where there's kind of like a brotherhood, or we're pulling together, we're on the same team, right? And you get that kind of feeling out of sports. I was using the example of basketball earlier. Diversity in teams, well, it could have either positive or negative effects, but diversity is a reality. You have to adjust to that and be able to work with people that are not just like you. And as we're globalizing, as we're becoming more integrated with other parts of the world, that's just the norm. Creativity is something that you'll get out of teamwork that you won't by yourself, because I used the example earlier of a networked brain, right? You're using other people's minds and synthesizing in new ways that you otherwise wouldn't have done before. Okay, so this will can team creativity be enhanced by greater team diversity? Yeah, it can, but you have to manage it. Can social loafing, conformity, and downward norm setting be overcome? Yes, but again, you're going to have to manage it. Okay, then there's the issue of empowerment. Empowerment encourages participation. Okay, so when you're empowering others, you're trying to get participation, but you have to really give that power to them. You can't be trying to control these people and saying, well, be empowered. It doesn't work that way. You either have to do it or not do it. If you don't do it, you're going to have problems, but you know you're going to have problems. If you do it, you're going to have a different set of problems, like you lose some of the control. But as you empower them, you often find that control comes back because they want to do right by you in the process. You have to make sure that they don't, run off and go all kinds of different directions, that they're all pulling the same way or working together. But empowerment is important to be done right. It's an attribute of a person or of an organizational structure. And what we mean by that is that some organizations do this well, some don't. Okay? Preparation and careful planning focuses empowered employees. So they have to know what they're going to do. And it's really good if these empowered employees are mature, because the less mature they are, the more difficult this is going to become to make sure this is done well. Empowerment skills are things like competence, process skills, self-management, cooperative helping behaviors, and communication skills. To the degree that you have more of this, it's better. And then ultimately what you'll do is you'll get self-managed or self-directed teams in the process if you can empower. And that takes away, this is called a leadership substitute. If the group can self-manage, then you don't have to be looking over their shoulder trying to see what they're doing. They can go on with the work, and it can go on without you on autopilot. You have autonomous work groups. Those are teams that make decisions that were once reserved for managers. Now, how much better is that if they can do the work with very minimal supervision? So that is all about teams. Now, at the very end of the chapter, they kind of switch gears here, and they talk about the 5 seasons of CEO tenure. So, for example, often a CEO is brought in because there's a big problem and there's a mandate from the board. We need a new person, and we bring in this new guy, and the new guy gets it, and he gets a certain honeymoon period where he gets to experiment. So there's a mandate to bring him in. He gets to experiment and try his new thing. He brings in his own team, and he gets to go his direction. Then there's selection of an enduring theme. This is what we're going to be. We're going to be all about quality or customer service, or we're going to be about more numbers, or whatever it is. Convergence happens as they start to get some momentum, and then the success becomes kind of the seeds of other difficulty and dysfunction. And you'll see that the average CEO's tenure is only about 7 years before it starts to go downhill significantly. It's just a very common thing. The power that he gets, the success that he gets, tends to be something that also inhibits him. And causes greater dysfunction over time unless something changes along the way to then bring on a new trend. Okay, at any rate, that's just the end of this. I just thought that was a pretty interesting thing to leave in here. We're done. That's groups, work groups, this chapter. Please, when you're done with this, go on to the other assignments. Thanks. I'll see you next week.